If you start investing $500 a month at age 25, you'll have roughly $1.2 million by 65. Wait until 35 to start that exact same investment, same amount every month, and you end up with $567,000. That's a $633,000 gap from a single decade of delay. The painful part? That gap is larger than what most Americans earn in 10 years of work. You didn't lose that money by spending it. You didn't lose it on a bad investment. You lost it by waiting. And if you're under 35 right now, that gap is still completely closable. But only if you stop doing what most people your age are doing, which is nothing, or something close to it. The median net worth for Americans under 35 is $39,000. 40 years away from retirement, and that's the median. Meanwhile, 53% of millennial workers say they feel behind on retirement. They're not wrong. The average millennial 401k balance as of late 2024 was $67,300. That number sounds okay until you run the math forward and realize it gets most people to about $400,000 in a retirement that could last 30 years. 3 moves separate the people who will be genuinely wealthy by 50 from everyone else. Not wealthy in a technically my house went up in value kind of way. Actually liquid, actually free, actually sitting on a portfolio that generates income while they sleep. These moves aren't complicated. What they require is speed. The clock is already running. Here's the first thing nobody tells you clearly enough. Time doesn't just help with investing. Time is the investment. The rule of 72 says that at a 7% annual return, your money doubles every 10.3 years. If you're 25 today, you get roughly 3.9 doublings before you hit 65. Start at 35 and you get 2.9. That one lost decade isn't just 10 years of contributions missing, it's an entire doubling cycle that never happens. A dollar that doubles 4 times turns into $16. A dollar that doubles 3 times turns into $8. The compounding math is violent in both directions. Work it early and it builds wealth for you. Ignore it, and it builds wealth for someone else. So let's talk about what you actually do. 3 moves. Real numbers, starting now. The first move is maxing your tax-advantaged accounts, and doing it in the right order. Not glamorous advice. Also the single highest return financial decision most people under 35 will ever make, and the majority are leaving it completely on the table. In 2026, you can contribute $24,500 to a 401k and $7,500 to a Roth IRA. That's $32,000 a year you can shelter from taxes before the market even gets to work on it. Most people under 35 don't come close to those limits. The gap between what people are contributing and what they could be contributing is, almost literally, the wealth gap in America. Start with the 401k, but only up to the employer match. If your company matches 4%, contribute 4% first. That's a 100% instant return before the market does anything. After you capture the full match, pause the 401k for a moment and move to the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is the single most underused wealth-building tool available to people under 35, and here's why. You contribute after-tax dollars, it grows completely tax-free, and you pay 0 taxes on withdrawal in retirement. 0. On what could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. The IRS gives you that window while your income is still low enough to qualify. Single filers in 2026 phase out above $153,000 in modified adjusted gross income. As your career accelerates, that window may only stay open for another 5 to 10 years. Miss it now and it's gone. After you max the Roth IRA at $7,500, go back and push your 401k contributions higher. The order matters because the Roth gives you tax-free growth, and the 401k gives you a tax deduction now. Use both aggressively. Here's what that looks like in practice. Someone putting $500 a month into a Roth IRA starting at 25 at 7% average annual return ends up with approximately $1.2 million by 65. Completely tax-free. Stack consistent 401k contributions on top of that over a 30-year career, and you're looking at a combined portfolio that could reach $2 to $3 million before you turn 60. Not a fantasy projection. Math on moderate, consistent investing with tax optimization. Most people just never run the numbers. One more thing on this. Your Roth IRA contributions, not the earnings. The contributions can be pulled out at any time, for any reason, penalty-free. That makes it a dual-purpose vehicle. It's your retirement account and your emergency liquidity layer. People rely on that feature more than they expect once they know it exists. Now here's where most people nod along. Call this smart. And then sit on it for another 2 years because they think they'll start when things settle down. Things don't settle down. Start with whatever you can, even $200 a month. The rate matters less than the habit. The habit is everything. The second move is where you put the money once it's inside those accounts. And this is the one people overthink the most. Stop overthinking it. The S&P 500 has returned an average of 10.33% annually since 1957. Inflation adjusted, that's about 7%. No fund manager, no crypto play, no individual stock picker has consistently beaten that number over 30-year periods. Some had great decades, none have reliably beaten the index over the time horizon that actually matters for building wealth. Buy a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500. VOO from Vanguard carries an expense ratio of 0.03%. VTI, also from Vanguard, gives you the total U.S. market for the same price. Not flashy picks. That's the point. The boring fund that tracks the whole market is what turns $500 a month into $1.2 million. The exciting stock picks are what turns $500 a month into a story you'll tell people about at dinner parties. When you're under 35, you hold one asset older investors don't have: time to absorb volatility. Every market crash in American history has recovered. Every single one. 1987, the dot-com bust. 2008, the pandemic crash in 2020. The S&P clawed back all of it and went higher. If you're 28 and the market drops 30%, that's not a disaster, that's a sale. The people who built real wealth through investing didn't time the market. They stayed in the market. Asset allocation advice telling young investors to hold 30% bonds makes no sense. Bonds protect wealth you can't afford to lose. At 28, you can absorb volatility. You cannot absorb low returns compounded over 40 years. A portfolio that's 90% to 100% equity index funds is not reckless for someone under 35. It's appropriate. The risk of going too conservative when young is just as real as going too aggressive when old. It just hurts you more slowly, so people ignore it. Set your contributions to auto-invest every month. Don't check the balance every week. The investors who perform worst are often the ones who trade most frequently. Vanguard studied this. Their best-performing accounts belonged to people who had forgotten they had them. Not an accident. That's compounding doing its job without interference. One more thing worth saying here. Dollar cost averaging. Putting in the same amount every month regardless of whether the market is up or down, smooths out your average cost per share over time. You buy more shares when prices are low and fewer when they're high. Automatically. Emotion leaves the equation. And emotion is what destroys investment portfolios. Not bad companies. Not recessions. Emotion. The third move actually determines whether the first two ever happen consistently. And it has the least to do with finance and the most to do with behavior. It's about what you do the moment your income goes up. Here's the pattern most people run without realizing it. Income jumps from $55,000 to $70,000. Rent improves. Car payment increases. Dining out becomes more frequent. Wardrobe refreshes. Subscriptions multiply. By month 6, the lifestyle has expanded to fill the new income and the savings rate sits exactly where it was before. Lifestyle inflation. Automatic. It moves without intention. And it is the primary reason people with six-figure incomes are still paycheck to paycheck at 45. The U.S. personal savings rate hovers between 4% and 5% of disposable income. Catastrophically low for anyone trying to build real wealth. At a 5% savings rate on a $70,000 income, you're saving $3,500 a year. You will not become wealthy on $3,500 a year. The math doesn't care how hard you worked for that raise. Here's the system that fixes it. When a raise hits, before you receive the first larger paycheck, redirect at least 50% of the net monthly increase straight into your investment accounts. Automate it. Don't wait to see how it feels. Don't wait to figure out your budget. Automate it the week you find out about the raise, before the new amount ever lands in your checking account. Call it the 50% raise capture rule. Income jumps by $1,000 net per month. $500 rotates to savings and investments automatically. $500 improves your life. You win on both ends. Over a 10-year career where income rises significantly, that one habit can separate a $200,000 portfolio from an $800,000 portfolio at 50. Same income, same market returns. Just a different decision made each time a raise arrived. The psychology matters. You won't miss money you never see. The sting of "I can't afford this" disappears when the money rotates automatically before you build a lifestyle expectation around it. The raise feels smaller, but it's building something real. The lifestyle creep people fall into feels great for a few months, and then turns invisible. They're not happier, they're just spending more. Now here's where a lot of people under 35 think they're building wealth, but are actually sitting on phantom wealth. Much of what millennials count as net worth right now is paper home equity. Home prices have climbed sharply over the past few years. If you bought a house in 2019 and it's worth $150,000 more today, that shows up in your net worth on paper, but you can't invest it. You can't retire on it without selling and moving somewhere cheaper. Real in a technical sense, not the kind of wealth that gives you options. Not an argument against homeownership, but a reminder that equity locked inside a primary residence is not the same as money working for you in the market. The people who will be genuinely wealthy at 50 are the ones building liquid, investable assets alongside their home equity, not instead of it. If homeownership is part of your plan in the next few years, one strategy is worth knowing. House hacking, buying a duplex or small multi-unit property, living in one unit and renting the other, can slash your effective monthly housing cost. Renting one unit at $1,800 a month against a mortgage of around $3,200 drops your out-of-pocket to $1,400. You're building equity and offsetting your biggest monthly expense at the same time. With FHA financing, you can get into that kind of property with as little as 3.5% down. On a $416,000 property, that's roughly $14,600 out of pocket. For buyers under 30 in 2025, federal first-time buyer tax credits worth up to $10,000 are also on the table. Homeownership fits the wealth-building calendar. It just needs to run parallel to market investing, not replace it. Let's pull back and look at what all three of these moves actually produce together when you apply them before 35. Someone who starts maxing their Roth IRA at 25, consistently buys low-cost index funds, and captures 50% of every raise over a 20-year career, even at a moderate income, is on track to hold between $800,000 and $1.5 million in investable assets by their mid-40s. Not net worth including home equity. Liquid, invested assets. The kind that, if they never contributed another dollar, would keep growing toward $2 million and beyond through compound returns alone. Financial freedom before most people finish paying off their student loans. No tech salary required. No side business. No lucky investment. Start early, pick boring funds, and refuse to let your spending climb every time your income does. The compounding gap we opened with, $633,000 lost to a single decade of delay, that's not a statistic designed to make you feel bad. It's the most motivating number in personal finance if you're still on the right side of it. Every year before 35 that you act is a year of compounding you keep. Every year you wait is a doubling that disappears permanently. Here's what I want you to think about. If someone handed you $633,000 right now, no strings attached, you'd do something with it. Invest it, protect it, put it to work. That's exactly what the next decade of your life is worth in compounding terms if you start now versus waiting until 35. The money isn't sitting in a bank account, it's sitting in the future, and whether it becomes yours depends entirely on decisions you make in the next few months. So tell me in the comments which of these three moves is the one you're furthest behind on right now. The tax-advantaged accounts, the index fund strategy, or the lifestyle inflation trap. Wherever the gap is, that's where to start. If this video gave you one number, one system, or one reason to open that account this week, hit the like button and share it with someone under 35 who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because next week we're getting into something most financial advisors won't tell you directly: the specific order of operations for building wealth in your 30s when you're starting later than you planned. The window is still open, but it doesn't stay open forever.